Okay, let's get started building our jungle soundboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start up LiveCode. And here we have our IDE open, ready for us to start developing. Now the first step is to create a window, which we'll use to build our app on. So we do this by going to File and choosing New Main Stack. So in LiveCode, any windows, any new apps you create, each one is called a stack. So we start a new main stack, and it appears here. Now before we go any further, let's save our stack. Then we'll just be able to save on top of it, save any changes that we do really nice and easily. So to save our stack, we go to File and we choose Save As. Now on my desktop, I've got a folder called Jungle Soundboard and I want to save my stack in there. So I'm just going to give this a name. So I'm going to call this Jungle Soundboard and I want to save it inside my Jungle Soundboard folder there. So that's saved, that's ready. From now on we can just do Control S or File Save to save any changes that we make. Now the first step in creating an app is creating the UI or the user interface. So these are the parts of the app that the user actually interacts with. So it's buttons that they can click on, scroll bars that they can move around, fields that they can type into, things like that. So each part of your app is going to be an object that you drag out from the tools palette. So just like you could create something in a drawing tool, or perhaps you're making a Word document or something and you want to put some pictures in it, each part of the app is an individual object and we drag those out onto our stack to create them. So firstly we'll start by setting up our stack, then we'll add images and buttons that the user can click on. Then once we've finished with that, we'll start adding some code to make our app actually do something. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to set up our stack. Now we want to give it a name. This will be displayed in the title bar and we'll be able to use it to refer to our stack when we come to write the code. And we also want to set the size of the stack. Now to do this we set what are called properties of the stack. So properties describe how a LiveCode object looks and behaves. For example, text size is a property that tells an object how big the text that's displayed on it should be. So the properties are just a set of different characteristics. So you might describe yourself in terms of properties, like you might have hair that's brown, eyes that are blue. The stack has properties that describe how it looks and how it behaves. Now we want to change these stack properties. So firstly we want to be able to see all the properties that the stack has and make changes to it. Now we do this by going to the Object menu and we can look at the Stack Inspector. And the Stack Inspector shows us all the properties that our stack has. So you can see here it's called Untitled 1, it's visible, it's got title controls, menu controls. These are all different properties of the stack. So we want to start by changing the name. And we're going to set the name to Jungle Soundboard. And then we're going to set the title. So the title is just the label that will appear up here. So here we're going to call it Jungle Space Soundboard. So that's just the label that gets displayed, whereas the name is actually how we will refer to the stack. So you can see here that the title up here is now Jungle Space Soundboard. Now the next thing we want to do is set the size of our stack. Now here in our Stack Inspector we're looking at the basic properties, but you'll see there's a drop down menu and you can change it to see different sets of properties. So to set the size we want to look at the size and position properties. Now we want the width of our stack to be 600, so I can just change this to 600, and we want the height to be 375. Now that's slightly moved, so I'm just going to drag it on screen. Now we actually don't want our user to be able to resize the stack. So at the moment you can grab your stack and you can resize it like this. We don't want them to be able to do that. So let me just make sure that this is the size I want it to be. So it was 600, 375. And we don't want the user to be able to resize it, so we'll turn off the resizable property. And you'll see now that I can't grab the corner and change the size of the stack. Now we've got our stack here, and our stack is made up of a number of cards. So here we've just got one card. All stacks, when you create them, have one card. And each card, you can think of it as like a stack of playing cards or the pages in a book. So each card can look different, it can have different controls on it, and it can do different things. And you change between the cards. So if I change from card 1 to card 2, I'll see something different. So each screen in your app is a different card and you switch between them to change what the user can see. Now this card here, the first card, is going to be the main card for our stack, and we want to give it a name. So just like we gave the stack a name, we want to give the card a name so that we can refer to it later and we know which card we're talking about. So to do that, again, we set a property, but this time we set a property of the card. Now every different type of control has a set of properties, whether it's a button or a field or an image or a card or a stack. So to see the card properties, we go to the object menu again and we open up the card inspector this time. And we switch to basic properties. Now we want to set the name of our card to Jungle Sounds. Now it's not got a space in it and we've got a capital S at Sounds. So it's Jungle Sounds, no spaces with a capital S. The capital there is just to make it a little bit more readable. And so we've given our card a name, and this is going to be our main card where we actually create our jungle soundboard. Now the reason that we've done this is because we're actually going to create a second card. Now this is one that the user won't ever actually see, but we're going to use it to store some images that we want to use on our stack. So we're going to create a second card. So to create a second card, we go to the object menu and we choose New Card. And LiveCode will automatically move us to the new card that we've just created. So if we now go to the object menu and choose Card Inspector again, you'll see that this one is card number 2. And it doesn't have a name. So we're going to set the name of this one to Resources. And what we're going to do here is we're going to import some images onto our stack. Now these are images that we're going to use as a background and as icons on our buttons. We need to import them into our stack so that they're available to be used. Now before we go any further, make sure that you've downloaded the resources from the Resources tab in the website. So it should look like what we've got here on the screen. So just download that resources file and that will give you a zip file. Once you've done that, move it into the Jungle Soundboard folder on your desktop or wherever you've stored your stack. So here I've got my Jungle Soundboard folder here, and you'll remember this is where I stored my stack earlier. Now this is important because our app later on has to be able to find some sound files. So if you follow the instructions in the slides and we have a look here, so what I've got in here is I've got my Jungle Soundboard stack and I've got a folder called Resources, and you'll see in here there's a folder called Images and there's a folder called Sounds. Now this is exactly the structure that you need your folder to have. You need your app, and next to that you need your Resources folder, and inside your Resources folder you need Images and Sounds, and in there you should have the sound files, the elephant, the monkey and the tiger, and the images, the elephant, the jungle, the monkey and the tiger. So this is how you want your folder structure to look. Okay, so we've downloaded our resources zip file. We've made sure that it's in the right place. What we're going to do now is we're going to import our images. So to import our images, we go to File, Import as Control, and we want to import some image files. You can see here you can also import audio files, video files, but we're just interested in image files at the moment. So select that. Then navigate to where you've got those images stored. So mine are on the desktop, in Jungle Soundboard, in Resources, in Images, and I want all of these. So I want all 4 of these to be imported in. So I select them all, and then I just click Open. And here are all my images. So now what we want to do is we've imported these. We're going to go back to our first card, to our main card. And to move between the cards, we can go to the View menu, and so you've got all these options here. So what we want to do is we want to go first. And here we are back on our blank first card, ready for us to start setting up our user interface. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the background. So again, we're going to do this by setting a property of the card. So the background pattern is a property of the card. So we go to the object menu and we open up the card inspector. And we switch to colors and patterns. So here you can choose to have a background pattern or a background color. And what we want is a background pattern. So click here and this will give you a picker. So here are some built-in patterns that come with LiveCode that you can use. But what we want to do is we want to use one of the images that we just imported. So in the menu at the top, we choose this stack, and this shows us all the images we've just imported. Now they're not that easy to see because you're just seeing a little bit of it, but the background is the green one. So we select that, and you'll see that it gets set as the background on your card. Okay, now our app is really beginning to take shape. We've started work on creating the user interface, which is the part that the person who's using your app interacts with. In the next step, we'll be completing the UI for our app. So if you're working in a pair, swap over now for the next step and don't forget to save your work.